on this computer.
You say
Bam.
something?
Let's go and open up the
He was
participants.
very
Tommy's going to pick up
welcoming.
Mike?
Wow, I see most
Okay.
people have their mics off, have their mics on. I mean, mute's off, mic on.
George is the
It's really hard to get
police.
people to do that. It's surprising.
Bo, do we have a designated person to stay behind in the last meeting? I can do that in case anyone straggles in like
Yeah,
10 minutes
yeah.
from now.
Could you?
Yeah, I'll hop back to that link and
Or
just check
Can
it
you
out.
leave a notice in
Or-
the other link?
or you know what, Matt, how about do this? I think it's more important. I'll jump into the old link with my other laptop here, and then if you
Okay.
can just manage the sort of waiting room, just getting people
Of this
in.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye on
So
this
I'm gonna,
one waiting
and
room.
then yeah, and I'm gonna go ahead and make.
Bo, you might just share your screen with a note that says, "Hey, we all left." There's a link in the chat.
I'm concerned, Bo, that
Yeah.
if both of us have left that meeting, it just may no longer exist as a meeting because there's no host there.
Yeah, let me go
Yeah.
over
I
there.
think
right
I
now.
tried
That's
to
right.
go in and it just says the host has ended the meeting. So and then I kind of had an option to leave and rejoin. So possibly it's working now.
Yeah, but it
Okay.
sounds like you'd be able to fix that if you had a separate laptop open.
Yeah, I'm gonna go in there
now.
right now, just so at least if people straggle in.
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
So there's.
So we just had a big fire engine go by with sirens and all kinds of things disrupting the conversation. Who was next? Let's just go on as if nothing happened.
Yeah.
I can go. This is Stephanie in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm going to continue the whole girl power because it seems like the last, 6 people have all been ladies. It was really hard this past week because I don't like to, I don't want to say like show my emotions, or it was hard when I was writing. There was, I think it was a day 5 or maybe day 6 where I had to keep getting up and leaving about 10 times. I had to leave for my writing because like tears were starting to well up. I'm like, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. And I just had to walk away and then come back and keep writing. But it was awesome. Like I made huge breakthroughs, but it was hard.
Mhm. Is there a problem with crying?
Kind of. Well, with me, I don't. For one, it gives me migraines. It stuffs up my head. But the other thing is, my dad was a drill sergeant in the Marines. We always, and my mom was strict too, but was always like, stuff your emotions down. So for us, crying wasn't okay.
Well, now it is.
Yeah, yeah.
We
Nice.
grow up. Yeah.
Nice, George.
Hey.
It felt
Come on,
kind
guys.
of odd riding with 150 people staring over my shoulder.
That's true. I didn't cry too much, but things got a little blurry. Like I'm typing and I'm like, wow, I can't see. That's because I've got water in my eyes, you know?
Yes.
I cried a lot. It's, I think, oh, well, hello, my name is Bruno. I'm from Brazil. I think it was the first time that I write something about my mother that passed away 2 years ago. And I think, yeah, it was the first time that I write something about it. And it was quite hard to do it. I never talk too much about it, even with my girlfriend. So I take the opportunity to copy the text sent to her, and she supports me here. But it was I was doing the lessons in the morning, so I had a very sad day at that day because I'm keeping remember about that through all the day. But well, it was interesting to pass through this.
Yeah, this is Josh from Chicago.
This is
To sort of jump in on top of what Bruno said because we lost my wife's mother on Tuesday.
Sweetie.
So we are.
My mom got this. Well, I asked my mom's bookkeeper to buy us a will thing. I don't want like eventually I'll
Oh, sweetie.
question.
Oh, Joshua, she's beautiful.
Yeah, I love the teddy bear.
That's
My name's Benno from New York, and the 5 whys were really interesting. You know, it felt like my nephew or something asked me why,
why? And then you sort of you think there's nothing more to think, and then you just keep going, and you get deeper and deeper into certain ideas. And so I think it really, and even one of the other like I thought of a memory I realized I sort of blocked out and hadn't thought about for maybe 10 years, with some friends and some bad event with some friends. And I was like, oh, that was here all along. I just had to dig a little bit deeper. And so discovering yourself, it's like discovering the conversation mate, right? Discovering the person you want to have a conversation with, who is yourself. And so it was interesting, but intense conversations with myself, I guess, throughout the whole week.
Can I ask, I can't contain my curiosity here. Can I ask, indicate in any way you'd like, hand wave, grunts, groans, laugh, cheers, whatever. How many of you cried?
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot.
Wow.
Pretty close to it.
Wow.
Yep.
Yep.
Whoa. What do you think what's that all about?
Yeah.
It felt like crying. I didn't quite get there. But
Just a little.
No, I didn't.
I almost did.
So we'll expand the
Almost.
question, how many
Almost.
cried or kind of felt tears welling up? That's
Yeah.
Definitely.
that looks like, I don't know, a quick eyeball. What would you guess? I would say half, maybe more.
Yeah,
How many of
maybe.
you feel like a jerk because you didn't cry?
Would be me.
Oh, not that either.
No, but what's that all about, do you think?
Well, I think I this is a Piyush, and I just finished the writing assignment for the current day 6, 7, whatever today's writing assignment or yesterday's, but it was reflecting on, how is the Zeta class going to work for you? And I was writing, and there was an incident when I had dengue in India, and I bought the David Foster Wallace audiobook of Consider the Lobster. And it's not that long, but I listened to it maybe 5 or 6 times in a row because I was in a delirium, and it spoke so much truth to me. And it was interesting. I referenced his name in Rome. It led me to Russell's writing,
I'm on now.
which I've already listened to. Watched, and he has a quote from David Foster Wallace about, I'm sure folks have heard it, but the old fish swims by, the 2 young fish, and says, "How's the water?" And the fish swim by, like, "Oh," one fish says to the other, "What's water?" And I really liked how Russell actually wrote about that, and basically said everyone's swimming in their own water, right? And you don't know that. And it's this idea of breaking down barriers. And so for me this week was breaking down barriers, all these exercises, because we're all like in the same condition, really. We're human beings in this water, but we put up so many barriers, and that really affects our relationships and everything in our lives. And to me, the process of writing is trying to break down those barriers. And actually having dengue sitting on the bed, there's no barrier. When you're ill or when you're at a peak experience, there's these things sort of really can happen to you. And that was an experience I had. So.
What about vulnerability?
Yeah, about just being really open to other people, right? Other experiences. And, I think we have barriers, right? We keep barriers up when we interact with other people. And I think this process this week has been, as I look back on it, was breaking down all those barriers, trying to in my life, and even interacting here on this call right now.
People are mentioning a lot.
Yeah, totally, man. Absolutely.
People are mentioning a lot of specifics. I'd love to hear what, in principle, what was going. People cry from grief, but I gather that wasn't it for most of you. Some of it was, of course, and you have our condolences. But most of it was not grief crying. What was going on?
Hey, if I could jump in, it's Harley from Virginia. For me, it wasn't so much the writing itself, although that did stir some emotion. I went through something very personal I'm going through right now. I think it was on day 2. and to complete strangers reached out to me, and through a block reference linking, and basically just said, you're not alone, you're going through this. And that was just really, really moving for me that, I've never met these people before in my life. And here I am writing in this graph, and they just reached out. And, I was going through something tough, and, it kind of helped. It kind of helped through it.
Unity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mean to dwell on the crying. It was just fascinated me. But anything else that anybody would like to jump in here with?
I think it's about vulnerability. Like, I mean, for me, I had to kind of face, some things that hurt me and made me vulnerable. And it's like, I don't know, not to like geek out, but I mean, you think of Superman, right? He doesn't actively go looking for kryptonite, right? His whole thing is to try to avoid that weakness. But this week, it was like you kind of had to embrace that and face it. And, I made some mistakes, with people in my life, and didn't do what I should have done. And having to face up to that and see where I failed was painful.
Yeah, I think mainly with the 5th day exercise, I went through a
Who's
path.
that?
Eddie, do you remember where we got that last quote from?
Sorry, got Marcelo. Go ahead.
I was saying I went through a path I never imagined I could go through in the 5th day exercise, the 5 whys. Well, I went through a path I was digging through very intimate, personal doubts. I got to know I was feeling I had some feeling of being completely lost in my life goals, and it really helped me to see the path I should follow in order to find what I am searching for, that I still don't know what it is, but I think I can find if I just follow the path I'm following here. And I actually have had many help from many people that really don't imagine they are helping me. While I read other people's responses for the questions Paul poses to us, it really helps me to think about my own reality. So I think it's really strong for me. I think it helps me, and I think it could help many of us here.
Do we have any psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers, mental health workers on the line who would like to comment on this kind of phenomenon?
Yeah, it would be nice.
I can make one comment as a reformed and recovering psychologist, and that is that we feel these intense rushes of emotion from somebody's talking in the background, and I can't quite spot who it is, but we feel these intense emotion mostly from values. That's why we react so strongly to art and other kinds of things. It is the values, the things that we consider most important to us.
Absolutely.
And all of Bo's exercises were touching on our values.
Have you finished reading it?
What's most touching on what's most important to us. And I must say that when I wrote down the 12 problems this morning, I've been advocating to people, I'm a bit of a hypocrite. I've been advocating to people that they write down a list keep a problem list, ongoing problem list for decades. And I kind of abandoned doing that, and it's in my head. But I did it for the first time in a decade or two, an explicit list. I think, gee, how am I going to get to 12? And I just had to stop myself in the teens, 20s, you know. And
George, can I take over?
Sure.
First off, thank you to everybody. I'm just gonna go to mute everyone for now.
Yep.
Thank you everyone for bearing with us as we were going through some of these technical difficulties. Obviously, when Matt McKinley started the meeting, he must have made it from a different account because we were limited to 100 people. So we had to create a new meeting. Now we've got 164. Obviously, this isn't what we had planned, but it's just sort of rolling with the punches. And you know what's going through my mind? I was really going to come down hard on you all. Just because, yeah, I had a plan of doing that, but I'm just listening to how much vulnerability that's already in the group that maybe we can skip that. Because I was going to come down hard because, let me go ahead and share my screen. I just wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, this idea of, you know, misinformation, this idea of taking what everyone is saying and just absorbing what random strangers on the internet tell you what to do. And I kind of want to just discuss about how I came to all of this and how, you know, a lot of times I don't really feel like I'm the most qualified to talk about any of this, truly. But I also know that sometimes it takes an outsider's perspective in order to figure things out. And so, you know, when I first started on this journey, you know, I saw a lot of people, if you go on the daily notes page here, I have it right here underneath agenda, day 8 keynote. I just wanted to talk a little bit about sort of what were the options or what were the ideas that sort of was out there already. And a lot of those were people that I highly respect, and I truly do. Yet I also understood that what they were doing was sort of hodgepodging different ideas and concepts that worked and tried putting that together and were sort of guiding people down this path that hadn't really been proven or hadn't really been thought through all the way. And that was a concern of mine because, again, I sort of walked into this tools for thought sphere, you know, June of last year. And as someone that, you know, I don't really care I don't care what kind of education you have. I don't care where you come from. It's about values. Like, is what you're doing, you know, from a place of authenticity and where you want people to sort of grow from. And that's all I question. And so, you know, I stumbled upon a lot of things and I realized that a lot of people were talking about this idea of evergreen notes. And then I was like, I didn't really understand that because when I was reading the book, you know, Sonke never talks about evergreen notes. He never talks about budding notes. He never talks about seedlings. And this idea really permeated the sphere. And I got a lot of pushback talking about this because I didn't agree that you should be calling your notes evergreen notes. And I still don't. And the reason for that was, you know, maybe some of you have already heard this, but I'll say it again. It's, you know, when I attach an analogous term to what I'm doing, I attach other things along with it. And one of the biggest things that I realized with evergreen notes especially is that if I have a seedling note that goes into a budding note and it turns into an evergreen note, it immediately adds this extra variable called time. And if you read Sonke's book, if you listen to Sonke's lectures, if you read Luhmann's work, he never mentions anything about elongating the time that it takes for you to go from fleeting note to literature note to permanent note. No. If anything, you want to slam that as fast as we can. We want to slam the time element as close together as we can. And so, you know, I'm just going to propose another way of looking at it. And this is the sort of, you know, the 3 phases of matter. And, you know, you think about gas. In the gas form, you have these fast moving particles. And these are sort of like the fleeting notes. And these fast moving particles they're fast moving ideas. And you have to capture it. You have to slow it down. And when you slow it down, it turns into this sort of liquid. And that's the second phase. And the liquid would be sort of like literature notes. But liquid without a container is just a puddle on the ground. It doesn't serve anything. It's hard to capture it. And so if you have a reference note, that is a cup that can contain the fast-moving, fleeting notes that you've slowed down, just like when you slow down a molecule. When you slow it down, it goes from gas into a liquid. And now you have this liquid in a container, the literature notes and the reference notes. And then I was like, well, what's a permanent note then? And then I started thinking about it. It's like, well, if you slow down this liquid even more, what happens is it turns into a solid phase or a solid state. And I just present that idea. It's just another way of looking at it outside of this sort of evergreen note idea, because I don't think time is involved. I know time isn't involved. If anything, time is one of those things that actually slows people down and makes people trip as they learn how to do a Zettelkasten, because they think that, oh, well, I'm going to put most emphasis on this permanent note. And that's actually not what you do. The emphasis doesn't happen in the permanent notes. The emphasis actually happens in how those permanent notes, which are just crystallized thoughts. These are just declarative statements. These are just worked on ideas that you've put into a solid phrase. And the whole idea behind a Zettelkasten isn't this one permanent note by itself. That's a very top-down way of approaching it, very folder, traditional hierarchy way of approaching it. No, the power of a Zettelkasten is actually how that note is connected to every other note. It's the connections that matter. And so as I was sort of looking through this, I started seeing these incongruencies, and I started questioning them. And so after this, let's see if, there we go. And then I started seeing things like this, which is Natalaisen. And he had this idea of metadata. And this idea of metadata is actually it's a sort of a copy paste from the traditional analog slipbox into the digital realm. The metadata typically laid up on top, and it's sort of it's a way to go, okay, well, I'm gonna apply the analog slipbox into the digital realm. It's a copy paste. And what I realized was, again, it's what you're doing is you're bringing over the physical limitations that you no longer have when you apply a Zettelkasten in the digital realm. Because you no longer need to have these things isolated and siloed into a page or an index card. For instance, if you have a physical slipbox, the hardest thing is knowing what is in the rest of the slipbox. If you have this index card box, you don't know what the next notes are behind it, but in the digital realm you can. And we will get into all of that. And so when you add this sort of, let's sequester everything into a page, it limits the technology, if anything. Because this is basically doing the exact same thing as a physical slipbox, which is fine. But you lose out on some of the technology. And then Suomi was the same thing, but Suomi, listen, I watched all of these people's videos, lectures, articles. And then with Suomi, it was the same thing. It was, but where's the fleeting notes? I don't understand. And bibliographical notes, okay, I understand that. And then permanent notes, but then where's the relevant notes? Where's the connections? How do you find the connections? And again, this is sort of a piecemeal approach to what, when I was reading the book, I was like, well, why are all these applications missing so many pieces? And then it dawned on me that as I was doing these coaching sessions, that a lot of times people don't want to do the work. And so they'd rather just skim from the surface, take what works, and go, well, I understand it. I'm just going to put this together with this. And then 6 months later, a lot of the people, what I realized that a lot of the people that taught you how to use Rome and master Rome or effortlessly use Rome are no longer really part of the Rome community. Like a lot of people said, you know, queries were how you're supposed to use Rome. And you're supposed to link every page, every word you're supposed to link. But they're not even in the community anymore. So maybe, you know, you just got sold. And that's what pisses me off more than anything, is that why would you mislead people? Why would you not test out what you're doing? And so these are the different interpretations that I saw. And then going back down, I wanted to go, well, like a good drug dealer or like a good drug addict, I like going straight to the source. I'm going to go to Colombia. I don't want the thing that's cut. And so I would listen to all these people talk, and here's the thing: they were not ill. They didn't mean any ill harm. No, they were just taking what they were doing and presenting it to the world. But I also caution you that, just like the vulnerability that you're feeling now and through this last week, that some people can see that and will want to take advantage of that. and will want to sell you something, and will want to, you know, hook you into like this. Here's the deal. Like, I ain't charging for nothing. Like, I see a turtle on the street, I'm helping the turtle out, but I'm on my way. And if anything, I get to learn how to do Zettelkasten even better. And so for me, it was, and then I also went online, by the way. And again, I took my time with this because I really wanted to figure this out. I had a powerful why. The analog slip box came into play as well. And this is Zettelkasten.de. This is Sasha and Christian. And again, it was the same idea. Well, they have a program called the Index, which does the same thing. Everything is sort of an index card, and an index card. But what happens is when you nest things in Rome, you no longer need to have things siloed and separated and hard to see the connections. And it was the same idea here with the metadata up at the top, the body here. And again, this doesn't leave much room to actually do writing, to do thinking. This is saying, I'm limited to this 3x5 index card, so I'm just going to say that's how you're supposed to do it. It wasn't really thinking outside the box. And Sasha and Christian actually had a 2015, they had a falling out with Daniel Luedecke. And Daniel Luedecke is the one that created ZKN. And ZKN is the platform that Sonke was using before he came to Rome. And again, I did my research. I wanted to know. And again, I don't want anything cut. So I was like, well, I'm going to skip this. These are just some of videos that really inspired me. And then this is a sort of Rome Book Club interview with Sonke. But it was really this presentation that Daniel Luedecke talked about. Again, Department of Sociology, Hamburg, Germany. And he laid out the most fascinating explanation. And basically everything that I'm walking you through now, but again, I'll say it again, Daniel Luedecke is the one that created ZKN, the application that Sonke talks about in the book. He actually mentioned Daniel Luedecke's name in the book, and before Sonke moved over to Rome, that's the application that he was using. And so I figured, if Sonke is going to do it, then I think I want to know who this guy is. And as I started reading this, I started realizing that everyone was sort of approaching this from a weird way. Like, I didn't really understand why they were approaching it this way. I'm going to let you walk through this, but basically, I'm just going to lead into be cautious on who you take information from. Even be cautious of me, right? But I do have to let you know that I've discovered this in August, September. I did the Rome tour in end of December. You know, I didn't even want to do lead Rome Book Club 3. But it's like, I also knew that I wanted to test this out. I wanted to see if this was, okay, what is this? And that's what I'm presenting to you. And really all I'm getting at is, the reason I wanted to dig into this a little bit was that you're going to have a lot of people that are going to tell you different ideas. And unless you do the work and figure out, well, who's right, that vulnerability can be seen as a way to be taken advantage of. And so for me, I say no to that. Not after reading what you're all are writing, not after listening to what you're talking about now. No, that's not, no, I will not stand that. No bullies. No bullies allowed here. And so, all that being said, you know, it's a matter of who can you depend on, and really I just want to instill in you that the only person that you really can depend on is you. And I want to guide you through that. So this last week was setting the space. We were smudging the place. That's what it was. We were just smudging the area. We were digging a little bit deep. We were planting the seeds of what this can be. And this is a very long journey. And you're not going to see this feeling of yeah, I got it. You're not going to see it until you hit critical mass of permanent nodes. And that's a long time. Yes, I paid too. Yes, I paid for the course too. And there's nothing wrong with it. Don't get me wrong. But I remember when I was on that Rome tour with Rob, you know, he said something that really just sparked my mind. He goes, you know, because it's such a small community, this tools for thought space, if one person gets it wrong, everybody gets it wrong. So why are we not bulletproof testing what people are talking about? Why are we not bulletproof testing what people are sort of saying that this is the hard, fast facts of how you're supposed to do something. So that's all I wanted to say today. I wanted to open up the discussion for ideas of invasive species. I wanted to just sort of open it up. I feel like there's this huge surge that's happening right now in regards to community. And I just want to, I think, George, if I can hand it off to you, but I really want to stay focused on this idea where I want you to talk about what you got out this week, sure. But to say it in I statements. Like, I don't want to hear a bunch of people saying, oh, Bo, this, Bo, that. I don't care. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear about what you got out of it. Because there's something powerful about saying things in I statements that opens it up, not only just vulnerability wise, but it also opens it up so other people can learn from it. And that's what I really want to sort of foster, is this idea of community that learns from each other. And it's like, it's not an individual, it's the group. And I know that this is the most powerful way of doing it if we all just sort of step up. And I want to open up discussion from let's say 1:15 to 2:15, so about an hour. And you can really talk about anything you want, but just, if you can say it in I statements for the benefit of the group, because that way there's no judgment on shoulds. There's no judgment on this is how you should do it or this is how you ought to do it. This is just, instead of that, we're going to move that all out of the way and we're just going to go, this is what I'm going through right now, okay? Like, what I'm going through right now is I'm a little upset of all the technical difficulties, and yet I also know that, this time that I have with everyone is profound, and I enjoy this, and I really hope that the message is clear that it's time that we started taking ownership and responsibility of the information that we are taking in. Because that's crucial. And so with that, I'm just going to go ahead and open it up. George, I know we want to have the microphones open, but so I say, the only thing is with Zoom, the microphone open a little bit difficult because it does pick up more extraneous noises, but I'll do my best to just sort of mute people. And so, yeah.
But if you're in a quiet environment,
yes.
Just, absolutely use your discretion. Could I piggyback on one thing that Bo said? When you use the I statements, it would also be very helpful to struggle a little bit publicly with, so what I learned out of that was, or what I think I might have learned is, or, incomplete tentative statements are just fine. Struggle with it. Somebody else will come in, complete your sentence, interrupt you productively. But I fully agree with the I statements.
Matt, please go ahead.
Bo, I was just going to say, this is Ken, and real quick, I was going to say, I'm holding the space bar down right now as I'm speaking. That's one great tip. Instead of unmuting yourself and remuting yourself, when you want to speak, just hold the space bar, and then when you're done.
Nice.
It takes away this. It does take away a little spontaneity, though, because you're not gonna hold the space bar and go, aha, yeah, I agree. So it's a trade-off.
Can we just talk? I just want to talk.
Yeah, go.
Also the spacebar thing doesn't work on every platform. So on Linux, it doesn't seem to.
So I guess the question is, I guess just continuing from earlier, like what you got out this week, but also, why you're excited on this new endeavor and what's different about this time around.
I was going to talk about the reconciliation between the I statements and the community, because when we speak like that, you kind of have to make a decision. How am I going to write this? And I would always get stuck with the passive tone and the passive sense. And I found that the exercises that you gave us really geared it towards that, to really almost like you're having a conversation with yourself, but all of you guys, and potentially if the graph got opened up to anybody else, then it would be that too. And I think that's at the heart of it. I know I used a quote by Nabokov, I think in the first one. A lot of people hate people writers and authors who do that familiar. They're too familiar with the reader. You know, I get that all the time about Nabokov, and I love that because I thought he was speaking to me. Like I really love that approach. It might seem a little contrived or whatever, but he's contriving it. It's a book. He's writing it. So what I discovered in the whole set of exercises, I mean, the 12 was just amazing. I was like, how? Like George said, how am I going to get to 12? Like, you got to be shitting me here. And then, like, I just went through it. Like you said, they just kept coming out. And I kept trying to think, I'm writing this for an audience or to be consumed, right? So somebody could pick this up. The other thing I'll say about that is the shift click, where all of a sudden, and this goes to your kind of fleeting notes thing, is you don't just write them and then, ooh, let's search for the meaning. Like, I've been using that shifting. I'll tag something and I'll see that it's already been tagged because you can, Chrome shows you that easily. And then you're looking at it and you see all this stuff in the sidebar as you're finishing your thought, like as you're completing what you're doing. And that to me was like a revelation. It was like, well, I don't have to just fully form this idea. I got it kind of down. I shift click and I'm like, holy crap, somebody else has written about spontaneity or, you know, whatever. And I'm like, now I'm adding that in. Now I'm adding those ideas in. So I think, yeah, I mean, maybe think about the audience, like think about the imaginary audience or the real audience. And I've just loved it. I found it's just made me go a lot faster and easier. It's more meaningful for me.
Brian, I'd love to just ask a clarifying question. The thing you just said about finding other people who have written about spontaneity. Oh, apologies. Yes, Mike from San Francisco here. Do you mean to say that in the daily writing exercises and things you're doing in the book club that like you're actively incorporating work from others in what you're doing? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Clearly I am still on level 1.
No. It's not about, it's like you kind of stumble, and I have a little help. I mean, my guru is Brian Pagano, who kind of got me all into this.
He's amazing. He's amazing.
I work for him, which is, can you imagine? I mean, I love working. I don't even like that phrase, working for. We work together, obviously, but he's my direct line manager. But yeah, I mean, he keeps like feeding us these little nuggets, and he's like, shift click, man. I've got that sidebar open the whole time. I was like, wow. So I don't want to claim I kind of stumbled upon it or whatever. I'm definitely getting little nudges and tips, but yeah, that's it. And I've just found that it's like a graduated cylinder. It's like, here's your stuff. And then all of a sudden you're just like dripping in more stuff, and it's just adding to that experience.
I mean, you're being humble, Brian, and I like that about you, but let's give credit where credit is due. You've just introduced me to the idea.
Well, that's how it happens, right?
Right, and the concept, I was having a discussion yesterday with a friend about how this used to be a common thing that people would mix ideas together. And it wasn't about, well, it's my idea, it's mine, I own it. This was actually an accepted part of like how we work on things together. And a lot of it, for example, centered in salons or coffee houses and things like, and this is our Rome salon. So now maybe you got it from Brian, but I got this from you. And so like, here we go.
Yeah. And that was the beauty of like people doing offsites, I think, because you'd work in a company and it'd be like, we're having an offsite. And he's like, hoo, hoo, hoo. And then you go off and like all of a sudden you're in a totally different environment and you're next to each other. You're in like a room in some nice hotel, hopefully. And then you're kind of like, people are going, hey, you know, like banging ideas off of each other and stuff. And that's how it works. And that's why people want to get away. I feel like we've gotten away on like an offsite or something, and we're just like banging ideas around. But yeah, I love it. I love it.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, if it's okay, I'd like to add a little bit more to what Brian is saying. I am a RBC3 alum, so I have just started getting into the graph, and I haven't actually looked into a lot of what people are writing because I feel like I haven't contributed my own stuff yet. But I want to say, just from the past experience, one of the best things was seeing other people's thinking through the same prompts. So Bo did a great job of designing these really just fundamentally resonating prompts that can resonate with each person individually. And one of the best parts of this network thinking that's being created in this shared graph is seeing how other people think and how other people respond to the same question. And that's so enlightening. And the level of thinking and just how much it transforms you, it like 10x's that transformation as well. So I'll be
more involved in the future, but just wanted to add that in from my past experience.
Can I just add something I find quite interesting? I'm sort of sitting here listening to all these amazing people. There's like pages and pages of these people from all around the world. So I'm Yvette, I'm from Bristol in the UK. And sort of echoing some of what Brian and Mike are saying, what have I got from this week? I almost feel like I haven't quite got the hang of it yet. I feel I'm still sort of starting to learn things. And I feel I know Rome a bit, but it's almost like it's out the corner of my vision, corner of my sort of metaphorical vision about what I'm trying to achieve. But I've been experiencing in the past where if you just kind of trust the system and you're surrounded by people who are clearly very smart, clearly very passionate, and they care about this and this is important to them, you can think, well, you know what, I think I'm going to get there, but I'm not sure how I'm getting there, and I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just sort of putting in the time, trusting the system, and then seeing where it goes, because I see people around me who's gotten a lot from it that I admire. So
Hey,
that's my thinking.
Yvette, maybe it's one of these things that when you're sure you know what you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, very true. Very true. I've literally got, I don't know if I can peel it off here. I've literally got this stuck above my desk. I don't know if you can see that. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing.
Read it to us. We can't.
And I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Wanted to jump in. My name is Abel Beckford. Like, I'm blown away by what everyone is saying. I don't have a clue how to use Rome. I've been so frustrated. I just want to use it in one specific way. I read a lot of books. I take a lot of notes. I've been doing this since 2004. I want to bring in my notes, and every time I do it, I make a mess of it. And I have to delete everything. So I'm very frustrated.
Yeah.
A lot of people smiling and nodding if you don't notice.
I could throw in some 2 cents there that doesn't, well, yeah,
Alan.
Completely been there. This is Alan Laidlaw. And happy to talk about that more. That's actually been maybe past few years, maybe decade, a semi-obsession of mine, right? Information architecture, UX, all of this. What's the best way to go about it? From workflowy to Bear to Notion and everything else.
Ouch.
And so coming in on this one, you know, there's a little part of me that admittedly is kind of like, all right, let's see what snake oil you're gonna force down my throat now, you know, because I'm not gonna follow the rules or I'm gonna mess it up. But what's been kind of different for me this time is a nice synchronicity with a course I'm taking, and Michael Ashcroft, I'm going to call you out here. You're on the call. He's got an excellent course about the Alexander technique, which at first I thought was about not notation math theory, because there's also an Alexander technique there, which is fascinating, but totally different. And what's wild, and where my point is coming to, is that what I've actually been enjoying is the opposite of linking to things, and the opposite of the graph. I didn't realize until maybe this week how much fuming there's going on in my head about how to link things and how are things connected to one another, and having on both sides these writing prompts like puts my mind at rest a little bit, just like the exercises that Michael has in his course puts my mind at rest. In fact, there's a book that he mentions in there that you should all check out if you're interested. It's The Inner Game of Work. And one of the ideas in there is you give your sort of conscious thinking self something to do so that your existing embodied self can actually kind of get the work done. And there's a little bit of that I feel like is going on with both of these experiments, these courses, and I'm appreciating that, because it's actually it's the opposite of what's the best way to store this info, you know? It's just be. Anyway.
Yep.
It's my little
really hard to give up that structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
It
Alan
is.
from City of Las Vegas. I think one of the things that I really learned this week is just that, right? That I have to kind of shift my mind a little bit and approach things in a different way. I mean, Alan and I are probably, you know, kindred spirits a little bit, because, you know, in some of the work that we do, it's very logical, it's very oriented. It changes every 6 months. 6 months from now, the tech that I know today is obsolete. And it's about how do I learn that and apply that to my current job? How do I learn something else and apply it to my current job? And if I'm too stuck on what I learned 6 months ago, then now I'm an ineffective engineer, right? And what I've kind of seen with Rome is that Rome is the same way. It's really all on me now. I can't complain I don't have the tool. I can't complain that I don't have a system or structure to put into it. Now it's up to me to design something with, the Zettelkasten system that works for me. So now there's 100%, I feel accountability that sits on my shoulders now because I have all the tools that I need. Just like if somebody handed me a new router with a book and said, learn this and deploy it, I've got the tools, right?
No
It's
more
how I do that.
excuses.
Yeah, no excuses.
But it's also a function on consumption, like I was saying, right? You're coming to, Alan, you're coming to this notion that if I do the provisioning of this information, I mean, I worked in data management for a quarter of a century, and the focus was always on how do I store it? How do I provide the indexing? How do I do the queries, the back end system? And then I just do integration and I connect them together. But I'm in the business of APIs. APIs make things consumable, right? So it's almost like you've got an API now or a way for people to access the information, and you're thinking about that. Like in my little speech there, I was just thinking about, I'm thinking about that it's going to be used, not I'm just recording it and stuffing it away. So the slip box isn't like in some dusty old back room or whatever. But I think that's a shift in data management. It's a shift in like semantic data management as well. And we've been trying to get there. How do we get the meaning and the data? How do we move from taxonomic thought to ontological thought in an easy way? I think it's a parallel to how we're actually thinking about managing information.
But
Okay,
part of that is that it's not necessarily just about like you mentioned about the data. It's I had a network meltdown that happened, let's say, a year ago, and there was this one piece of code that one engineer put in there, and we were able to fix that. So 6 months from now, how do I pull back that information and quantify what I learned here to see if it applies here? Because if I don't have a system to do that, then it's just, wow, I fixed this really cool thing 6 months ago. How did I do that? Nobody documented it. And now we're back at zero again. But
Okay,
I think with this type of system, if it's done properly, it allows
George,
you to not have
George, let me take over. George, let me take over.
Yeah, go ahead.
I kind of wanted to switch gears here, just because I feel like I've settled now, like being upset about the technical difficulties from earlier. I'm sort of settled now. So I just want to, I love the discussion that we're having, yet at the same time, I know that we're about to walk into fleeting notes, right? And this idea of fleeting notes probably has a lot of meaning behind it as well. And so I guess what I'd like to do is, specifically in regards to fleeting notes, what does everyone know about it so far? Like, what's your opinion about it? What's the importance of it? How would you explain it? And if you're in RBC 3, please don't say anything if you've graduated, just because you already know. But just for people in RBC 4 that are just, maybe even just starting to read the book, or maybe you've had a little experience applying a Zettelkasten before, what is the importance of these fleeting notes? What's their purpose?
Hi, this is Minnow. I think fleeting notes helps you understand what you are bringing to the table as you're reading or interacting with any kind of reference note that you're having, just so you understand where you're coming from, and asking yourself enough whys to really understand why you're there, interacting and wanting to create something from what's in front of you.
I'm from London. What I sort of saw as the value of fleeting notes was that I've previously consumed so much information day in, day out, and most of it was lost. I'd read something, I'd forget about it once I was on to the next page. And I saw the value of fleeting notes was some way or structure of actually retaining some of that or keeping some of it in order to then feed into the Rome as the sort of more permanent structure. Sort of felt like it was a way to get, probably lost 99.99% of the value of stuff I'd been consuming. And this was a way of just retaining it long enough to then funnel into what was needed.
Nice. And again, yeah, please.
This is Michelle. I was gonna say, I think the purpose of fleeting notes is just to keep me engaged throughout the reading.
Can you explain that a little bit? No, this is good. Because what I'm doing right now is I want to know where everyone's at, so I can structure what this next week is going to look like. So I really need to know like what you're struggling with, what your understanding of it is thus far, what your experience with it has been as well.
Hi, this is Ashwin. I wanted to just say that before, when I used to work on something, I realized that that's when I'm very closest to the topic or what I'm working on. So the insights that I come up with then, are really valuable, but I would never write them down. So I think fleeting notes is something that allows me to kind of record how I process things. And I think that's the moment where I have that complete understanding of what I'm working on, because I'm never going to go back to that moment again. So I've lost so much of such insights, but I think fleeting notes, it's kind of it has that insight notes that keeps going as you work and as you go about day to day.
So why can't you go back to that moment when you have a fleeting thought?
I think some of the insights that I get to involves something that happens before it that I can't recreate. So maybe I would have to go back and do 50 things that I did before I got there. So and sometimes you can get there, but it's really frustrating. So, you read 10 things and you arrive at something, but then you only remember 3 of the things that you read and you don't know where the other 7 things are. So even if you want to retrace it, you may not get to that place that you wanted to or where before. So I think, yeah.
I think you're onto something. I think you're right, though.
I think. Oh, so sorry. There's a point in the chat, I think, about Lumen and about then relating that to how we're reading stuff, right? When you're reading something, there's some reason you're reading it. And then the content is the stuff that's the fleeting note. And the fleeting, then you're taking in content, and the fleeting note is, I think, somehow to link the purpose to the content. And I've been struggling with this.
Explain that a little bit. What do you mean link the context to the purpose?
Right, I'll talk specifically about this book, like how to take smart notes, right? So I try to apply Zettelkasten and technique using the courses that you referenced, both of them, and try to say, I'm reading this, okay, this is something I should write down, and eventually it'll become a permanent note. And so the purpose of why I'm reading how to take smart notes is to learn how to, create my own Zettelkasten. So that's the purpose. The content is, what's in this paragraph, and there's something he's written here that I should remember.
Why? Why does that happen? Again, when I ask these questions, by the way, it's not directly directed towards the person that's asking. It's really just open, and basically, you can raise your hands if you'd like. I can call on you that way, but I much prefer where you just unmute.
Let me jump in then.
Yeah.
I think yeah, it's like, so you're reading something, and this is some information or like something. So you wanting to make a fleeting note is an indication that there's something important. You were either confused, like I was confused, I don't understand something, thus I need to engage. So like it's reminding you to engage and then record like that engagement. And this is the
What's making you? What's making you?
What's making me?
You said, hold on. I want to stay on this for a second. What's making you?
My confusion.
I'm just asking innocent questions.
I think
right? I'm just asking innocent questions. I'm just asking, like, what is compelling you to go, I need to capture this idea?
I think it's because you had an idea or a thought that occurred quickly and you want to do it before it disappears on you and you totally forget about it.
I wonder
because
too,
you
I think for me,
resonated
it's
with
a
you.
choice.
Yeah,
It's about
resonant.
choosing what matters to you. It's saying this is important to me, and it's making an acknowledgement of that and like really committing to that distinction, saying yes, this matters.
I get that part.
That out.
I get that part, but why do we need to capture it quickly? Because it seems like what I can presuppose from that statement is that, okay, there's been times where you have lost those ideas and thoughts and fleeting things.
So
Marcelo,
Leah,
or
I use fleeting notes in many situations, not only when I'm reading.
Just keep talking over. Leah, let's hear from Leah, please. She's tried to jump in a number of times. Go.
No, thanks, Janelle. But also, Marcelo, I really want to hear what you have to say. I think you were like going there, and I was like, okay, let's go. What I just wanted to add here is I don't know if any of you have been the kind of person that reads with a highlighter in hand. And Bo, for me, fleeting notes, the importance of that is like I could pull a book off a shelf and be like, show you all the highlighter moments in there, but I don't. Those highlighter moments, you highlight it and then you move on. And for me, the purpose of fleeting notes is that feeling that I have when I see something and it's like, it's all connecting, but I don't have anywhere to really put it. So I just highlight it, hoping that I might come back to that feeling in the moment and kind of the really beautiful kind of collision in my mind, but without, you know, picking up a notebook and actually noting it down or making a note on it or finding some synchronicity or why it is important and either tugs on my heart or pulls in my brain or it provides an idea. It's like the purpose for me of the fleeting note would be to replace just the action of like highlighting, or Stephanie, you were mentioning like screenshotting or snipping things and trying to translate them later. The fleeting note for me is the point where you go from, oh, this is so important and it feels so much, to just letting it go. The fleeting note serves the purpose of actually nailing down that feeling that connects to perhaps more of our like deeper purpose, our meaning, what we're actually trying to capture, and being able to translate that into a writing system. For me, it looks like if I noticed that I was writing, you know, 10 or 12 notes consistently on, you know, any topic like organization, I would be like, you know what, I should probably think about organization more. And that
can I piggyback on what Leah?
Hold on. Let me just set new rules real quick, okay? This is what we're gonna do. If you have your hand up, I'm just gonna go with the people that have their hand up. There's just way too many people, and this conversation is going really fast. So I want to like basically, yeah, I've got an idea of how I want to run with this. Now, what Leo was talking about is very important, but my question is, I'm gonna direct this towards Marcelo, because you had your hand up earlier, right? Marcelo, you know, I have a question for you now. It's, you know, Leo was talking about, you know, capturing these ideas because they're fast moving and these are important, but how much are you supposed to capture?
Well, I don't use fleet notes when I'm reading for now. I mostly use fleeting notes when I have that flashing insights, when I'm taking a bath or when I'm running at the beach.
So how much do you need to capture of that so you can remember it later?
When I have that aha moment, and this is a sparking idea that I just feel that man, I just can't let it go away. It can be any kind of thought. For example, a verse for a music I'm thinking about composing, or if I am working in a project, a software project, and I just happen to have an idea of how to solve a problem, and things like that. It's just when you're not thinking about that thing, and then an idea comes to your mind, and then yeah, that's what I needed. And so it's important that you have to write it down.
That's perfect analogy. So I'm gonna jump over to Taj. Taj, let me ask you this: how often do you have these sort of aha moments, and do you have a way to capture these aha moments? And why not?
Yes. For me, the fleeting notes, it's like a star on the galaxy, because I'm writing.
Oh, no. I'm not talking about fleeting notes. I'm just talking about the aha moment. Because I'm continuing the conversation. Yeah. What I'm talking about now. Yeah.
Okay. Every moment. Every day, every moment, every day.
How much pressure do you feel when you have to remember all of this and you have to, you know, juggle all of that? Is it frustrating?
Can you repeat, please?
Does it get frustrating when you have to capture these, or do you get frustrated when you have these ideas and you're not able to capture it?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes, of
Why
course.
why don't you have a system then?
Because I was searching for every methodology, the Telkasten, this method, and um, sorry for my English.
No, it's perfect.
I'm learning.
Appreciate your
Look, I'm learning Zettelkasten. I'm learning Power method. I'm learning this. But it's not for my brain. It's not for my brain. Because when I have this aha, okay, this aha thought, I need to write at this moment with that method.
That's great.
And when I have this aha method, I have this relation. Oh, this is the another aha method. The aha moment.
Yeah.
The
So
aha
Tosh,
moment.
so I want to jump over to Jenny Groft. Jenny, can you describe what an aha moment is like?
Yeah, that was kind of what I wanted to talk about. There's things that I'll almost like try to pass them up, but they keep kind of pulling me back because I know it's something that is going to kind of haunt me later, even if I can't remember what it is. There was something that made an impact on my mind or on my emotions or my ideas.
Wow. Yeah.
And so it's those things that I really, okay, I'm annotating, I'm having a conversation with the author, and those are all obvious. But then the ones that I try and pass up, but I keep bouncing back, and I can't go forward until I save that. So
what happens if you do go forward and you don't save that?
Very often I'll end up going back, or I'll have that moment later on where I'm like, well, there was this one thing. And I need to remember that, but I can't because it was beautiful or because it was meaningful, and now it's gone. And I can't even remember which book it's in by that time. So
that's perfect. Now I'm going to jump over to George here. George, Jenny was talking about sort of missing out on those moments, right? And I know your history, George, and it's like, I love what you've done. What does that remind you of?
I'm not sure if you're prompting for something specific here, but what I would like to call attention to not just the aha moment, but I call it the moment where you have some energy around an idea. And I use the purposely vague word of energy because our subconscious is this amazingly wonderful thing. And whether the idea comes from inside a dream or a book or a thought or whatever, wherever the hell it comes from, it's there, and you say, I don't know what the fuck it means, but it's really, I got a charge out of it. And when we do idea generation sessions, often you generate 200-300 ideas on boards and paper and all that stuff. If you say to the people, what's the one idea you have the most energy around? Maybe it's the one you want to come up and cross out. Maybe it's the one you want to forbid people from talking about. Maybe it's negative energy, maybe it's positive energy, or it's negative, the significance of which you don't know. But you get a little hit of energy. It may be big, it may be small, maybe a little dopamine hit, maybe something else, but you get a hit. And you don't know what its significance is, and you may not know what the significance is until 2 years from now. But you need a way for it to go into not the graveyard.
Exactly.
To go someplace where it will come back to you at the right moment. And I'm just learning. Pretty good with taking the notes in Rome, but just learning how to dive in and connect them. When I connect them now, I get overwhelmed with so many. I'm getting 20 to 50 ideas a day that I'm writing down, that I'm connecting.
Yeah.
That
So George, I want to jump over to Andrea Kramer.
Of course.
Right? And I just want to sort of piggyback off what George is saying, Andrea. And my question is this, did you complete the writing exercises?
Until today, yes. Today
Yes?
I didn't yet.
Okay,
but
that's perfect.
everything else.
And so, when he was talking about these sort of, the emotional, the energy, did you feel that while you were doing the guided writing exercises?
This is something that perhaps it's a linguistic thing, because in German, thinking about something literally means rethink something. So for me, fleeting notes is something when I want to think about something again. So rethink it, start at the beginning, because every time you rethink something, you will get new insights out of it. So the first draft is always the worst. So, but you have to know why so it's not, this thinking about is so different in the German concept of thinking. Because we don't think about things, we rethink them literally. So I think something and then I rethink it, and then I get a step further in my thinking.
The visualization that comes to my mind is like you have a net and like you're capturing the butterflies, you know what I mean? And then after you capture it, then you're sort of rethinking about that experience. And so that was perfect, Andrea. I'm gonna move over to Mark McCoy. What did you think about what Andrea just said?
Yeah, I think for me, it goes back to what you said about gas, liquid, solid. So fleeting notes, like connections or collisions in a gaseous state are random. So going to what George says, like we're reading stuff, our subconscious is processing stuff, we're interacting with just general life. So it goes even beyond what we're reading. And we're randomly going to see things, or our brain is going to make connections. And it's almost going to be like in this gaseous cloud, something hits.
Yeah.
And it's random, hence fleeting. And in that moment, we have a choice to sort of precipitate it into liquid state, which means then we have more agency to go back to it, to work with it, to process it in an intentional way, to turn it from something that was random, that may not resurface, into something that we can actually work with.
I'm just thinking like how much, like I understand, like you have these gaseous thoughts, right? And they're fast moving and they seem random, but how much of that do we need to capture in a fleeting note? How much do we, because there's two phases of a fleeting note, by the way. The first phase is actually the capturing. The second phase is actually the processing, or the beginning stages of taking it from fleeting literature, permanent note, bam, as fast as we can, right? That's the sort of deposition, right? That's the sort of, how we take it from gas, liquid to solid. But before you get to that though, there is a capturing phase. And this is where you don't want to break your flow state. You don't want to break your, I'm in the zone state. So as you're reading an article or you're reading a book, you capture all these fleeting notes. And so my question is, how much do you think we need to capture in a fleeting note, so when we do go process it, that we'll have enough of that, I know what that randomness is. And so I'm going to jump over to Tina. Martina.
Okay, hi.
Yes.
Hi guys, Tina from Slovakia. So for me, fleeting notes, for example, yesterday I was trying to do the exercise and I just couldn't. I didn't have the ideas for it. So I went to bed and then I woke up and it hit me. So I had to capture that note. I was in my bed, so I was literally in between my bed and between my table. So I was going back and forth, and there was that conversation that I had, and it was literally asking for it to be captured. And if I didn't capture that, I think that I would explode or something would happen. I just couldn't not to.
Can I ask you a question? So can you walk me back one more time here? So you looked at the question, right, for the guided writing exercise, and then you gave it some time before you came back to it, correct?
Yeah.
And then in that time, you had these like fireworks of energy, right? And so I think about that and I go, that's interesting. Because what is that? What happened during that time? From when you saw the question and then the next day? What do you think that was?
I don't think that I can capture the note while my analytical mind is working. I think I just have to let it go, because what I have found is that I have to ask, and then the answer arises.
Yeah.
It doesn't go without that.
And I think that's right. So I'm gonna jump over to Russell, and so Russell, just piggybacking off of what Tina said, it's. Have you had moments where you had, you saw something and then you sort of let your unconscious mind sort of figure it out, or whatever that looks like?
Yeah, that's a great question. Hi, I'm Russell. I'm currently living in San Diego, California. It's not really something that I can really answer, because like it's a sort of intuitive kind of thing. It's letting go of asking how much and just capture, because you can really ask yourself like how much over and over again, and you just end up not capturing it. I'm saying that from personal experience. Like I'm the kind of person that really asks like, how much can I like distill this entire paragraph of text into something that would like, I can recognize myself for later. And then that sort of essence of being able to capture it is so fleeting that the time just passes and I just like miss the opportunity to even put those things into my own words. And so you really just have to stop asking how much and just do it. I don't know. That for me is like what I've been trying to like really hard to like figure it out. But
yeah.
I've found that like working subconsciously to like get that out there is my biggest block. And I don't know if that's like probably the biggest block for a lot of people out there, but yeah.
Well, I mean, the thought that goes to my mind listening to you, Russell, is that that's a lot of like negative associations to myself about how shitty I'm doing at managing these fleeting ideas and like managing how I'm learning. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so I'm going to jump over to Alan here. I want Alan to sort of piggyback on this, what you were talking about, Russell, but it's just like, if I'm going through these times where I don't know if I captured enough, I don't know if I captured it right, I don't know, and then sometimes I don't capture it all, and then you have this flood of like, Alan, talk to me. Does that sound familiar?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you're wondering, one, did I capture enough so that there's enough context there so that when I go back to it, it makes sense? You're also wondering too, okay, so I captured all these things, but what was my thought process when I did it? Why was this important to me at the time if there's not enough data there? And then the other thing is, like you were mentioning the aha moment, I'm doing the exercise and I'm going through it and I'm getting an aha moment about things that aren't even related to what I'm doing. We had a routing issue at work and I'm like, you know what? I know why there's a routing loop now, because there's a ERGRP redistributed route that somebody must have put in over here. That was a problem from Friday. But because I'm in this state where I'm emotional, I'm typing all these things, I'm getting ideas from other places. So now it's like, okay, how do I capture those too? Because they all seem very connected.
Yeah, and so whew, like you're touching, I'm getting chills right now. So I'm gonna jump over to Karaminder, right? But now I wanna piggyback off what Alan is saying, and I wanna talk about why is it important to have fleeting notes that encompass all the things that are happening in our life.
I worry about that because you try to encompass too many things, you lose the flow, you lose the you lose getting back to it. But I always look at it like this. I say thank you to my past self. I always like past Karaminder looked out for future Karaminder, because future Karaminder is dumber than past Karaminder was. So when I take these fleeting notes, like I use the drafts app on my watch because I'm walking my dog, and I know that if I don't capture that right then and there, it's gone. And maybe you get lucky, lightning strikes twice, I'll have it again.
But when you're capturing it though, do you riff off of everything else that's going on? Because you could be talking about, I'm going on a walk, but this reminds me of Boston. I think about Boston, I think about this, I think about that.
So usually I'll say what it is in my note, and then I'll say how I got there, because your brain is already like doing this little journey of connection, right? So I talk about it's context. It's like if you're in a filmmaking, Bo, it's the establishing shot.
He said context. He said the magic word. Yes. And
I'm
then
not going to drop this mic.
yeah.
It's too expensive. But
No. I'm going to jump over to Nikki, right? And the question is now, again, everyone, by the way, just raise your hands and I'm just going to go down the list, okay? Because this is fun. I'm having fun with this. This is sort of like, you don't know what question you're going to have to answer, but if you jump on the list by raising your hand, we're going to figure out what that is. So Nikki, I want to pose this for you is piggybacking off of what was just said. It's what the hell was I talking about? Fucking, I lost my train of thought. Why is it important to know why is it important to remember the context when we're capturing a fleeting idea or thought?
I'm going to be a different place in my future self. Like, I'm not going to be in the same context today that I will be in 3, 4, 5 weeks time when that is going to be important and resonate again. So yes.
So there are two phases of a fleeting notes, right? First is the capture area, and then it's the actual processing from fleeting literature to permanent note, right? How long of a time is that going to be? Like, is that going to be like, because Lumen did it in 24 hours, but Lumen didn't have an iPhone with notifications and pings, and even now I put it on Do Not Disturb and I still get distracted, right? So how long do you need to be able to sort of capture this before you do have the time to go back and process it?
I don't know, because I haven't read the book and I'm coming behind. I put my hand up to tell you what, like this week, I noticed my energy and my excitement coming from the daily habit of going to Rome in the morning. And your prompts really were amazing at just getting me excited about it and wanting to do it. But what I found is I was coming back throughout the day, dripping and going back. So because more stuff was coming from that original thought or prompt. So quite often it would be multiple times during the day, but I haven't read the books or not. I don't know if you're supposed to, but for me it was like,
how long do you think? How long do you think you would want that to last for? Because sometimes we can't get back to processing it. Life is in session, you know?
I think it's until you know it, until it means something, or until you don't have to like go back to the system because you know it internally. I don't know.
So so what I hear you saying is that you want to capture enough that you know enough so when you do come back to it, you know what's going on. You remember what it is. Nice.
And tie other things to it later as well.
Yeah, exactly. So Minnow, what do you think about what Nikki just said? About this idea of, capturing as much as we need to so we can remember it later?
I think it's true. And I also use the Drafts app and just try to capture as much as I can have. And I think one thing that I realized from doing it or not doing it is this idea of mindfulness, that as you are in the habit of capturing and processing the context and the things that you hear and what's relevant, it sort of becomes a part of your life, and you can naturally sift through the noise and find the signal. And so it really, for me, I realize it's sort of a like it fixes itself, or it sort of self-manages. The system self-manages once you're really self-aware and you're in the process of understanding that these thoughts you have are great. And one thing I wrote in the chat is you start to really trust yourself and your ideas more so than other people's ideas, which is I think the danger of Rome, or danger of just getting all this information, having a summary, and you think other people's thoughts matter more than yours. But when you're interacting with them in the fleeting note capturing and processing way, you realize that you can start trusting yourself and what you're thinking.
Ooh. That's interesting. So Patrick, let's piggyback off of that. Trusting in yourself and your thinking. What does that resonate with you How does that resonate with you?
When it comes to taking notes, by the way, I'm also a Drafts app user. I do have two types of notes that I take. I have those which I can easily refer to a context, whatever. If I take a note referring to work stuff, etc. So I then just need one or two words or whatever, and this one is easily sorted, so it's out of the way. But there are other thoughts, which are more of an interest type, where I don't know where it belongs. So then I need to have more context and give myself more cues to find it later. But most of the time, I find that I don't, for myself, I write only short reminders myself and trust myself to recreate the memory by using specific triggers. And when I started this several years ago, I was in the camp of writing more down. Pages sometimes, and sometimes then going back and tossing them because they weren't relevant. And now it's fleeting note for me. It's more fleeting ideas. is just something I could say with 1-2 sentences maybe. So, and then when I come back to the process part, then I hope that this is enough to trigger for me to
that's a good point you just made, because what happens if you didn't capture enough?
If I didn't capture enough.
That's twofold. It's twofold, but what happens if you didn't capture enough?
Well, if I come across, and yeah, you have sometimes those, you know, in what state of mind was I? What do I wanted to say with this note?
Yeah. That's the worst feeling in the world, because like you did the time to capture it, you did the time to write it down, but then when you come back to it, you're like, what the hell is this? I forgot.
Yeah.
So I want to jump over to Michael Floor.
Yeah.
Michael, do you get a sense of importance of writing out these fleeting ideas, these fleeting thoughts?
Currently, yes, for the first time. I had such a lot of ideas about the last years, what I would like to accomplish, to manage to write a certain book, and I never wrote them up because I wasn't able to connect them. These were all loose ends. And now I have the first time the idea or the hope that what I'm doing here and what Rome can accomplish, if I do it right, is that I can start collecting all these thoughts I have so that I can later on let them connect, or that I can work on these connections. So far, I thought they were not worthwhile.
So I love what you said. You said, if I do it right. But then what everyone else is talking about is, well, I know all the times that I didn't do it right. All the times I lost those notes. All the times I didn't capture enough. All the times where I let the fleeting thoughts go and I didn't even write it down. Or, you know.
I'm lazy.
I also think there's a sense of disappointment in ourselves. And so Michael, I'm going to jump over to Shiram, I believe?
Yeah,
Shiram. So Shiram, I kind of want to just touch upon that. Is, do you have experience with the pain of being disappointed in yourself? I hate to put you on the spot like that, but
no, it's actually pretty real. I had a local graph. I'm still struggling to make Rome stick for me. And for about 4 or 5 months, I had been using a local graph for a research project, and had the pleasure of my browser crash on me and the whole cache not being recoverable. So now I'm truly disappointed that everything that I wrote down half-assed or real in Rome is lost. And now trying to re-pick things back. If you ask me about disappointment, I don't know what prompted you to ask the question, but it's pretty timely and somewhat real. The one place where I do like the idea of capturing notes is I write to-do list like there is no tomorrow. There is always be a notebook with me, and right now I'm trying to see how I can move much of my habits into Rome. And part of it is someone mentioned mindfulness and all that, but more than that, to me, it's I think quite a lot. I'm a fairly nonlinear thinker and intuitive, so I just don't know the connections I make myself. So just writing a few reminders to me helps me jog my thinking and try to make sense of them later and such.
What I heard you say is that even though you had the disappointment of losing your local graph, you're still going.
Yes, that is true.
To me, I'm going to jump over to Patricia here. To me, I think that opens me up to like, well, this is why I do any of this. Is just that, is maybe we don't need to have the disappointment. So Patricia, just the question that I want to pose to you, just backing off what Shiram just said, was, what do you look for? What are you looking for in a Zettelkasten? What are you looking for in this system?
Right, this is Patricia from Brazil. Well, I've been writing down some of the stuff you guys just mentioned, and well, I'm looking for a system that helps me, take my notes and also help my students. I'm a professor, to help them write their dissertations as well. And I was just thinking that it is different when, when I'm thinking like scientific writing and my personal notes. Because for my students, I usually tell them, whenever you find something you're interested in, write down the page, because you will never find the page again, ever. And that is so true. We see that happening. I mean, those here that, like in academic writing, it happens all the time. You will never find the author again. You'll never find that page again, ever. And
How,
you're like, oh,
how does
so
how does a student know when something interests them?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I try to, I try to say, if you find it's like, that it sparks your curiosity, that somehow, it makes sense to you. It's like, oh, this is something that I would like to know more about, write it down, or like make a note like, oh, this is interesting, and write the page, or do something that, but then Andrea said something that, I thought was really interesting, which is the thing that when you go back to it, you look at it again, you review it, right? So it's never the same thing. It doesn't really matter, I mean, how well, or like you said, how much of it you you actually, like write down to remember later. It's always a new thing. And I think it should be.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the processing bit, it's not really worth it.
Yeah. So it's 2:08 right now, right? And we have another 5 or 6 minutes, and I'm just blown away by just how much enlightenment, how much desire, how much passion there is to figure this out. And it's just like, I wish you could see what you're about to find out in the next couple of weeks. And we have 4 more people with their hands up, so we're gonna cut it off after these 4 people. But I sort of want to just before we jump into this little writing exercise for the last 15 minutes, Geneva, I just like to pose a question, because really the overarching message that I have right now is I've faced disappointment with systems and myself. I see all the times that it's failed and it hasn't worked. And so Geneva, I just want to touch upon this idea of the hope that we do have that maybe this could work. Maybe this could work. Maybe a Zettelkasten in Rome could work. Maybe this crazy Asian guy who keeps yelling and cursing at you could help guide you up the mountain. And so Geneva, why do you have hope?
I have hope. That's an interesting one. I think I've been using Rome since they started adding people to the wait list. So I got through and I was like, okay, I'm interested. I like lists, and I like the fact that you can connect things, but not really connect things. Like, you don't have to see the connections, but the connections are there. So the hope is there, I think, because I use this app on a daily to get me focused, I guess, on the day that's about to happen, on the day that's happening right now, right this minute, what's going to happen today. So that's what I use Rome for. I think the hope is I'm living my life in the present moment, and Rome allows me to do that, but it also allows me to reflect on the previous moments that I've thought about something and I've written it down. I don't know if that makes sense at all, but I think the hope that right now, although I'm trying to live in the moment, I will always have Rome to kind of go back and recheck, okay, how have I thought differently from now, from before? Have I improved myself, or am I still learning? Does that make sense?
Yes. So I want to piggyback off of that to Gaia, and what do you think about what Geneva just said about this idea of go ahead.
Like going full circle in the idea of like how the Zettelkasten system is like I have hope for it. I think for me, like it's something that I've always been like unconsciously searching for my whole life. Like it only really started to pop in like, oh, there's an actual system around this, and there's an actual methodology and a whole process around it. But for me, like I can relate to like moments, and even in high school or like elementary school where we had to like write essays and different kinds of like even reading books, for example, just something as simple as reading a book. It's just like, okay, well, it's such a simple task, but like you know, you read a book and then like what, a few days later you forget everything, or like, so what was the, so now it's just trying to get grounded. And that's what I really, the hope that's for me for this is like, okay, yeah, well, it's like the idea of creating like a personal, like an account of your, like an autobiography. It's just so captivating. And I know that looking down like many years ahead, I'll remember this moment. So like, yeah, it's just the start of something. So thank you.
Marlando. What's up, brother?
Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I'm all right, Bo. This is
Hey,
excellent, man. It's amazing. This is, and George as well. Like, yeah, man, is a good host at the whole thing. But yeah, what's the question?
What is the question? What's on your mind? What are you taking away from this whole session?
Oh well. Oh.
Can I tell him a little backstory with us?
Yeah, go on.
So I love this dude. You know why? Because
love you too, bro.
Well, let me explain to the rest of the audience here why is that Marlando did RBC 3, and then I looked at his work, and I told him straight up, I think you should do RBC 4, and he fought it, but he's here, and to me, there's nothing I respect more than when, you know, when someone challenges that and they go, well, yeah, I'm gonna show you, Bo. And I just love that. I love that about you, and I'm just so
Thank
grateful
you.
to see your process and be part of this, man.
Yeah. And to be honest, part of it is, as I said to as well, it's in a way it's believing in you and also believing in myself. Yes. Like, you know, I've seen such a response from people that have partaken in it and how people have felt from this, like, especially on the last one, the emotion at the end was just like, wow, it's life changing for a lot of people. What question do I have? I would say,
or what's your biggest takeaway from this meeting so far?
All right, to be honest, I didn't get to listen to all of it. But what I did hear, it was more seeing how people recognize the fleeting notes, and how far do you go with it? And also, I think the main part as well that I wanted to try and think more on is the capturing, because you've always got ideas flying, and you have to think, oh gosh, like you've got one idea, you want to take a note of that one, but as soon as you've got that one, it sparks another idea. And I feel like it can be, I don't know, it's a matter of knowing, I guess, as you build up the process and the graph, you will start to let go of some and recognize that, you know what, that one isn't as important as the other. I think for me, I can have a lot of ideas throughout a day, and it can be frustrating because you don't know which one is going to be the best one. You know, you want to capture all of them, and not all the time you have something to hand. So it's by the way, I'm Marlando and I'm from the UK. And it's yeah, it's more the capturing part. You know, you have to have, and I remember you was asking that in the last session, in the last club, and it was how people use their capturing methods. Some people use the utter wrap. There's again, that's what people have to figure out for themselves to some extent.
Yes.
And I think that's what is that's the main part. It's the start, it's the entry point, isn't it? So that's where, you know, some thoughts, you have to process that in a certain way, you know, because again, if you depend on how mobile you are, not all the time. I don't know, it just depends. Maybe I just need to get certain apps that other people are using.
Or you know, it's again, we'll touch upon this in week 6 too, where it's about output and workflow, where everyone's workflow is going to be different. Like, it's nice to see how other people do it, but some people are on Android, some people are on Linux, some people don't have a laptop, some people only have a desktop. And so it's once we understand all the fundamentals, once you understand all the concepts, then when we're focusing on the output of it, then it's like, oh, well, I have these tools around me. Let me use the tools that I have around me. So I'm gonna jump over to Mike. Mike, what's your takeaway so far? What do you think about the first week, this whole meeting, this whole conversation that's been just sort of flowing through? What do you think?
Well, I love to see, it's not that I enjoy to see other people struggling and suffering, but certainly misery loves company. And so I think the thing I would say on that is
watch out for Mike.
We are all in this together, right? And
yes.
If we look at the chat and see that, like, the common threads and the questions, it's that we're all trying to figure this out. And so first of all, let's take comfort in the fact that we're having a shared experience of figuring it out. And let's be okay with the fact that we don't know yet what this is or what it means. Now, I think 3 points that I wanted to make. The first is, don't get too caught up in the tools, systems, and processes. You know, even in David Allen's book, talking about getting things done, he discusses like the right amount of system is the absolute minimum system that you need to get it done. You're not supposed to be in the system. You're supposed to be doing the work or having the ideas or doing the thinking, things like that. And so like I left Notion because I had completely over-engineered it and it was completely consuming me. And then I came to Rome and I have never done a course. I've not watched intentionally by design. I've avoided every single piece of information that would teach me how to use Rome. And that's so that I can shape Rome according to my own self and my own desire and my own patterns. And there are times when like, oh, like, well, there's a thing I want to figure out. Can I just go grab that thing and then come back and then shut it down? And so don't get too caught up in the system, because the system isn't what makes this happen. That's number one. Number two, there's a lot of questions on like capture. Just whatever works for you, just use that. But the key thing to remember is if you're just capturing, you're not processing, you're not doing the work. That's the actual core part. If you're just capture, you're stacking things up. And look, they may look like pieces of paper, and any one piece of paper is very light individually. But like you stack those up on top of one another and you're going to collapse under the weight. And I've had so many of my systems just collapse on like under the weight of themselves. I got so sick of the boom and bust cycles. I was like, enough, I'm not doing this anymore. I literally took myself all the way back to pen and paper. And then I've just like slowly been laddering myself back up. That's the second thing I wanted to say, is make sure you process, because capture alone is not enough. And then the last thing I wanted to say is the experience that I've had learning how to trust my intuition has been so powerful, to the point where like I was having a conversation with a friend yesterday, and he asked me, like, we were having a meaningful conversation. He asked me a pretty direct question, and I didn't have time to think about it. And literally, like, erupting from my core came words that I couldn't have thought about saying, and they just like came out. And the thing is that I couldn't do that 6 months ago. I've had to learn to trust my intuition and to let my intuition manifest. And so much like with our thoughts, like we're using this system so that we can take it out of our head and put it in a place that we can trust and we can return to. I feel that our intuition also begins to reward us the more we trust it and let it come into our conscious space. So just don't overthink it. I know it's so easy to say, but it's so hard to do. Don't overthink it. And as you learn to trust your intuition and your intuition feels safe, it will surface. So just give yourself that space, give yourself that time. There is no right. I said this on our call last weekend, it seemed to resonate. The end destination is the same as the starting point. The only difference is that, yes, the journey that you took to go all the way around. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. We got one more. Yajing? Can you unmute?
Okay, sorry. Okay, Yashin from Holland. And thank you, Mike. You give me so much insights. I think the most important thing is processing. I've been using Rome since last September. And to be honest, why I took part in the club is I got stuck. I ran into bottleneck, and I kept taking notes, but not processing. Yeah, that's a problem. And from right now, I think, yeah, I need to look back on my notes and think about my workflow. And just several days before the beginning of our reading club, I began to revise my workflow. And it turns out, yeah, I think I did a very good job before. I took so much things in that. The only thing I needed to do is just push a little bit, push yourself a little bit, and trust yourself, and improve yourself to process. I think make whatever tool like Roam integrate into your life or integrate into your habit, and trust not the tool, but trust yourself. Trust yourself to write something. So I want to share one more thing, is that we are talking about fleeting notes, taking notes. I think one thing that's great for me for Rome is to push me to read. I think that's one thing right now in the fast-paced society, we forgot to read. Read deep material. I mean, not just cell phones, but books. Yeah, that's what I want to show you. Thank you.
I'm just blown away by all of this. Yeah. You know, just listening to everyone, and really the thing that's the most touching is how much of an impact we're having right now, whether we know it or not. Like all of us. Like we're having this. We are the ones that are really putting the stakes into the ground of, you know, yeah, read deeper, write more, think, rethink. Like all the things that everyone was touching upon. It's not like it wasn't me. That was all you guys. All I did was ask questions. Like you guys all came up with that. That's it. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and finish off the rest of today's live session. If you want to fire off day 8's template, I went ahead and made one. Hopefully it's syncing. It's going to be what I learned today about fleeting notes are these ideas. And I think there's a lot to write about, and I think there's a lot to think about. You know, but this is the first step towards the how. And I know, you know, the first week was all about the what and the why we want a Zettelkasten, and now it's onwards towards the how.
I don't see a day 8 on here.
If you do semicolon, semicolon, day 8.
That's what I, oh, okay. Oh yeah, that came up.
And so, yeah, we're
so I have a question. I have a question. When and how are you going to actually teach us how to take fleeting notes?
That's what we're doing this week.
Okay.
Slow down, George.
Okay.
We got another 5 weeks left.
Jumping at the bit. Okay.
5 weeks left. Hopefully everyone has enough excitement and persistence and resiliency to get through to it.
I just want to know where to put the friggin' labels.
Boom. George said what everyone in the entire 139 people here are thinking. So we're all excited, man. Let's go.
George is in a hurry.
I'm always in a hurry.
No, but yeah, I'm gonna draw it out. Well, this is how I look at it. You know, how else? Like, I think I forget who said it, but it was almost like, yeah, I needed a day to think about it, and then when I came back to it the next day, my subconscious mind worked on it, and it's the same idea. It's like you have enough of a fire hose of information going at you, you know. Let's slow things down, you know, and digest things a little bit. So, again, I'm gonna leave everyone to it here. It is what 2:30, 2:25. I'm gonna have a little music going. And then once you're done with the guided writing exercise, or once you're done with the question, and you feel like, you know, you've written enough and you're done with the day, you know, you're done. And I'll keep the meeting going on for another 30 minutes. I'll keep going till 3. Yeah? Is that right? Yeah, till 3 o'clock, and then I'll shut down the meeting, and then I need to prepare for tonight, or for tomorrow's lesson as well. So thank you to everybody. We're on the path. Yeah.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah. Let me find some music for you guys. Any requests, like lo-fi or
Mozart?
Like Mozart? Okay.
Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus would be great. I'm kidding. Kidding.
Chopin's great writing music.
Chopin?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's not kidding, huh?
Okay, so I'm gonna leave you all to it. Let me share the audio. check your volume. All right, here we go. I'm gonna start raising it slowly.